All right, welcome back to Boxing and Rap Late Night Show. I'm your host, Emmett the Artist. Welcome. All right, we're gonna just real quick just make sure we are on track here. There's always a little bit a little adventure here because of the satellite dish that I have for internet. Don't get satellite, guys, if you can avoid it. But anyway, welcome back to the channel. My name is the Artist. This is the late night show, 9:30. Thank you for being here. I just finished watching. Let's just talk a little bit about what just happened. I just was watching that Fatal Fury press conference, and it was utter hilarity. Uh, let's just talk a little bit about it before we get into the actual show, right? Let's talk a little bit to see if anybody comes in and drops in. We're gonna talk about Bivol Benavidez, and how that might get made for the summer, and we're gonna talk about, of course, which you saw the title card there, or when you came in a thumbnail. We're gonna talk a little bit about your boy Blue, talking about maybe possible on the 200,000 buys for the pay-per-view with Tank Davis and Lamont Roach, which we're gonna get into that because it doesn't surprise me too much. But yeah, Fatal Fury with Teofimo Lopez, Barbosa, Garcia, uh, Romero, Haney, big names. It was an interesting uh, press conference, but hey guys, listen. At the end of the day, I think Teofimo Lopez is just trying a little bit too hard. I think Tio is coming off as desperate. He's trying to find like a villain angle in his career. I think he's trying to do what Floyd Mayweather did, but it's not organic for him, right? What Floyd did was essentially he was just winning, and he was cocky about winning. Pause. Like he was very confident in what he was doing in there, and his confidence is what made people hate him, right? Because he would win no matter what, right? He would win, and it would just rub people the wrong way. That there was nothing that a fighter could do at the time when he was Pretty Boy Floyd to get anybody to beat him. And Teofimo Lopez thinks that because that's what Floyd did, became a villain in the eyes of the public to really make the big money. That's the way he got to go. And the thing is, it doesn't come off organic, right? So Teofimo Lopez doesn't have the cachet. He doesn't have the persona. He doesn't have that personality. Everything feels forced and stupid and just corny. To be honest with you, and I like him as a fighter. It's getting harder and harder to like him as a person without knowing him. Because if this is, sometimes people, the old saying goes, believe a person when they tell you who they are, right? And Teofimo has a few things that he's telling us that I gotta just at this point believe it. You know, anyone who's willing to use racism as a point of selling a fight, I got issues with that a little bit. I got a little bit of issues with that when you're using racism to sell your fight. That's number one. Number two, you're trying to really make yourself look like a villain by just coming out there and just starting a fight with everybody. It, it doesn't seem genuine. That's the whole point with him, though, right? It doesn't seem genuine. It doesn't seem like somebody who has a chip on their shoulder. It doesn't seem that way, right? Like if you look at Haney, when Haney talks about what's going on, um, you could feel that Haney believes what's going on. Like Haney feels that way. Like he knows. Like okay, um, I really I need this fight. Like y'all don't believe me. Like y'all don't believe me that I'm a, that I have a chin. Yeah, y'all don't believe that I'm a great fighter. Y'all don't believe that this then. Haney has a chip on his shoulder, whereas Teofimo Lopez, he doesn't come off that way. Right? So in this press conference, he just seemed like a little weird, man. He just came off weird. He was trying to do the 80s references, when he was wearing makeup and all that stuff. And it's just like, come on, man. Like at this point, I'm just over it. You know, him trying to slap Barboza because Barboza slapped a stupid hat off his head. uh, that was funny. But other than that, he's just coming off disingenuous. But what about Bill Haney though? God, I forgot the interviewer's name. It's right there. Can't think of his name. But anyway, at the end of the whole thing, he interviewed quick Bill Haney, and Bill Haney just told him into his face, a poor interview guy. Like I forget his name. Is it Grisham? I forget his name. He called him a piece of shit like 3 or 4 times because he claims that his son, he didn't represent his son the way he should have. Like he wanted. So he came and said, well, Bill, what do you want me to do? And he was like, well, you didn't represent my son the way he was supposed to be represented. You ain't introduced him the way he was supposed to be introduced. And it was like, like Michael Buff introduced your son as Undisputed. Like I don't introduce your son. Like he did. Well, you don't represent him the way he's supposed to represent. Bill, what do you want him to say about your son? What do you want him to say? Like what? I don't want to. Like he's mad that Ryan Garcia is getting all the love, and that Bill Haney and Devin Haney aren't getting any love, right? But that's what all of the boxing public was saying about when the Haneys filed that lawsuit and tried to sue for battery. We all were saying that's a bad look on your end. You know, like it's a bad look. You as a fighter, you shouldn't be suing. You shouldn't be doing that at all. And what ended up happening? That's what ended up happening. The fans turned against Devin Haney for the simple fact of you as a fighter, you shouldn't be suing for battery. So now here we are a year later, and people are booing his son. Yeah, people are gonna boo your son, Bill, because he's a fighter, and fighters are supposed to react like fighters. They're not supposed to be out here suing for battery. They're not any of that. And that's what he did. And so now he's mad that everybody's kind of like not giving his son any love, you know. And I have a funny feeling Ramirez is gonna do something that night. Devin Haney, like all he kept doing was like defending his whole position. Oh, the fact that I kept getting up means I got a chin. Like, champ, calm down. Like, if you got a chin, you got a chin. Like, it's not gonna, like, relax. Like, we're not out here trying to, sweep it from under you. It's just, okay, you got a chin. Like, that's all he keeps talking about. Where you see Ryan Garcia, he's like, yeah, I say I popped dirty, but that wasn't what he got suspended for. We all know that they know that didn't have to do anything with how he got beat that night. That billionth of a gram, it didn't do anything to what happened to him in the ring, which was he had just a flawed game plan, a flawed technique, and those flaws showed up, and that's why Devin Haney and Bill Haney now are like really upset about it. But the way Bill Haney went about it, calling that dude a piece of shit after on national television, on YouTube, everywhere, that was unprofessional. It was uncalled for. Listen, it's not that dude's responsibility to introduce your son in any other way. He told you to your face. Michael Buff introduced him. I just gotta sell a fight, Bill. Like, that's it. Here, you sell the fight. So Bill was salty for no reason, and that was funny to me. But at the end of the day, it's a good card, man. Like, it's a really good card. I think Barboza has a good chance to beat Teofimo Lopez. I don't think that's an easy fight to pick, especially with Teofimo Lopez ups and downs. Ramirez is a big boy at 147. I think he should be at 154. And I think that there's a lot of questions behind Devin Haney. So I think that, Ramirez is not a better boxer than Devin Haney. He's not. But I don't think that matters. What matters is how Devin Haney's confidence is that night, and what ghosts remain from that last fight with Garcia. And I think if Ramirez can even give him a little bit of that reality back and make him kind of like get PTSD from it, it could be a long night for Haney, and it could be an upset win for Ramirez. So that's what I'm leaning towards, because that's just the way it feels like. Like they're trying to overcompensate. And then Rolly is out there like he's on like he's drugged up, sedated, or I'm not saying he's using drugs or anything. I'm just saying that he just looks like he's out of it. He looks like he's unengaged, like he's just Yeah, I'm here to get a paycheck. Yeah, well, he says he's gonna knock me out. Yeah, well, he ain't. He's just, if you watch Rolly in the whole press conference, he's just looking at everybody like, oh, y'all talking to each other. Okay, wow. You talking? Oh, you trying to talk to me? Like he doesn't give a shit. He couldn't be more disengaged. If he was sleeping, he couldn't be more disengaged. Like that's how uninterested he seems to be for this fight. And I don't know if that's a good thing on Rolly's part or he's just gonna get knocked the hell out come that day, because it doesn't look like Rolly is at all interested in the fight with Ryan Garcia at all. It could just be that he's matured. I don't know, but I'm not quite sure, man. Like I see these fights. It's a good card. I can't wait to see it, and I don't know what the price point is yet, but it'll be interesting to see what they price this out at. Seeing as that, I don't know if they're gonna sell tickets for this fight. I think it's by invite only. To Times Square, so I'm not sure how or whom is gonna attend, how many people. So it'll be interesting to see what the price point is. I think at this point we all should just relegate to the fact that Turki Al-Sheikh doesn't care about whether he loses money or he makes money. I don't think any of that is what he's in for it now. I think he's just holding fights. I think everything is a promotion for his new league that he's trying to do at this point in time, which, hey, Hollywood spends more money than that. If a movie was $100 million, they spend another $100 million in advertising, and and that's the way it is. And I think that's what he's doing. He's going to spend a lot of money in his league, and he's going to spend a lot of money in advertising it. And I think this is the way he's going to build it. Funny enough, this is a DAZN collaboration, and that's pretty much going to say by the time September rolls around, those collaborations are going to be probably few and far in between, if not all gone. So it'll be interesting to see that. But yeah, so let me know in the comments down below. What do you guys think? Do you guys think this is gonna be a good card? Do you think the fights are what they're supposed to be? Who you think the main event should be? I think really the main event should have been Barboza Teofimo. I think that should have been the main event. Co-main could have been Garcia. It could have been flipped around. Because I really do, but I get it. Garcia is the millions of followers and whatever, and you can see it. Everybody's cheering him on. That's another thing that's just sticking in the side of the Haney. Is like every time Garcia shows up, he gets cheered, and every time Haney shows up, he gets booed. I mean, that's the path they chose. They chose to sue. They chose to act that way outside the ring, and hey, that's what you get. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to tell the Haneys, man. I wish they would have done a different thing, but this is the way they went down. But yeah, let me know. Oh, by the way, like I said before, I got this camera here. It's gonna cut off at 30 minutes, but I'm gonna just stay with me. Just a picture, second to have it back up. But yeah, so that should be around 10 o'clock. And around there, you're going to see like old school bars, like old television set going off. But let's talk a little bit about, we're going to talk about Tank and Blue in a minute. But let's talk about the situation with David Benavidez and Bivol. It's getting a little interesting where all of a sudden now PBC is interested in holding that fight early summer of this year. That's interesting for a number of reasons. Well, one, that was the rumors. Everybody picked up on it, and they were like, it's almost being finalized, through the ring, a lot of different boxing outlets. I mean, legit boxing outlets, and Rick Glazer and everybody. But the camp of Bivol today, actually, was it today or yesterday, late night, or early today, said, we haven't been come close to finalizing anything. Now, I responded to that message saying, it just sounds like they're saying, we're going to see who the biggest bag comes from. That's just and what it is. You don't want to, you want to kind of quell the rumors, right? Because you don't want to mess up the bag. You want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to bid and you get the most money out of it. And that makes sense. But now they're saying they're back, and if you see on the Instagram, and I have it on the thumbnail there, David Benavidez Sr., he teased, some big news coming up soon. So it seems like the stars are aligning without Turki Al-Sheikh for this fight to happen. Now, a lot of people that I was talking to, they want the trilogy between Beterbiev and Bivol, and I'm like, I'm not saying that's a bad fight. Obviously, it's a good fight because we had two good, solid fights with two of them. I think Beterbiev won both. I think he won the first time, as rightfully so. And I actually think he was better this time around than he was the first time. So for me, it was an easier pick to pick Beterbiev or Bivol, although Bivol kept it close. I just think that they were both better, but Beterbiev was better than the last time, and he won, right? So that's why I thought he won. And I'm like, I've seen two of those fights already, and I don't think a third fight will be any different, right? So it'll be like Bivol wins one, Beterbiev wins one, Bivol wins one, and they could fight 4 times, and it'll be even again. That's where I think they are. So for me, at the point where Beterbiev is, where he's 40 years old, I don't need him to have a trilogy of this type, right? I need him to face as many different opposition as possible to see how great he truly is. Because now we know that he's pretty much even with Bivol on the officially, and so I think him and Benavidez would be a better fight. Now that doesn't mean that Benavidez gets past Bivol, because Bivol is an excellent fighter. But if you hear Benavidez talk about Bivol, he said, "Man, I sparred him many times, and I can beat him." He didn't even hesitate. He just said, "I can beat him." That's the fight. That's the matchup. And believe you me, that matchup is gonna do better than 40,000 US buys. It's gonna do better than that, because Benny, I think, did between 70 and 100 on his own. I think that on his first pay-per-view, which is respectable for his first pay-per-view. I mean, he didn't have, the card was okay. He was the main eventer with David Morrell. And I think he got about 100. I think close to 100, if not 100,000 buys, in and around the US buys. So that's not a bad look for Benny. So a Bivol and Benny undisputed matchup, I dare say 300,000 pay-per-view buys, right? Because Benavidez brings, believe it or not, he brings a lot of interested fans. So I think that's a good move. Where I think Turki Al-Sheikh, and people are not mentioning this, and there was a couple of YouTubers that and I don't blame them. I would love to also work with Turki Al-Sheikh, right? I mean, listen, anybody that tells you any different, that they wouldn't accept an invite, they full of shit. Or at this point, they're just too proud, to back out now, right? They've gone too far off the deep end, bad mouthing the guy. I mean, the racist comments and all of this and that and the other. I get it, but in some ways I don't, right? But anyway, going back to it, a couple of YouTubers, that I know, have some dealings. They reported it right, but they're not reporting it exactly the way that I think it is, right? So they're saying, he just doesn't want that. He wants a trilogy. So he's not interested in this fight. He wants a trilogy. I think he was dead interested in Benavidez fighting Bivol. I think he was. I think it came down when I think he wanted to have the trilogy, yes, and then the winner of that could, right, be undisputed against Benavidez. But the fact that the WBC, what a lot of people are not telling you, is that the WBC named Benavidez the Mando, and they're giving Bivol an ultimatum to defend or not defend. And that's ultimately was led to Turki Al-Sheikh saying no. Then if that's the case, I don't want the fight, period. I don't want Benavidez. That's just cutting your nose off to spite your face. And they're trying to paint that as, he's just not interested. He wanted the trilogy, and he's just not getting it. And that's that's not really what's going on. But now PBC says they're interested, and they're coming close to a deal. And that's going to be big for Prime. Now, here's the thing. What's the price point going to be, right? What's the undercard going to be? Because now we're getting spoiled with Turki Al-Sheikh a little bit. And other people will tell you otherwise. Like, oh, no, I'm not spoiled. Yes, they are. They're spoiled just the same as everybody else. They're spoiled in that we be getting these great matches, these great cards. And it's going to be interesting to see what it does with the price point. That's going to be very important. I think PBC is in the hole. I think that part is true. I think they lost a lot of money, and that's what we're gonna get into the Tank Davis situation of it all, right? Because Tank Davis pay-per-view, his last one that just passed, is $90, right, to get that pay-per-view. And I mean, is it worth $90? I mean, I don't know. But I think that the PBC needs to price him that way because they've lost a lot of money, so they have to try to recoup gate and pay-per-view buys. Whereas, they can't give that up too easily, that revenue, right? Like Turki Al-Sheikh can, right? So they don't have a plan for a league. They are the promotional company, right? They say they're not, but the PBC is a promotional company. And it'll be interesting to see what this one would be. Now, who the undercard is gonna be. I don't know. That, we're just getting word of that they're even interested. But it'd be interesting because it might go up for bid, right? So maybe Matchroom gets involved. Let's see who that. But it should be easy to make between the two factions. I just thought that was an interesting fact that they're saying, it just gives open opportunity now for other promoters to get involved and be able to fight. Now that Turki Al-Sheikh doesn't really want it because he wants the trilogy. Turki Al-Sheikh, just didn't like what Suleiman did. And Suleiman took the high road, by the way. He put up and saying, XYZ. He's not, kind of like, me paraphrasing, but he's not mad at Turki Al-Sheikh. He's had no problem with Turki Al-Sheikh. Interesting. And another thing, and I'm going to make a video about this, and I was thinking about it. And I wasn't thinking about this before, but the Muhammad Ali Act. Now, yes, I mean I've heard it. I've been listening to about the Muhammad Ali Act, but I didn't really pay too much attention to it. And then Paulie Malignaggi just kind of reiterated it, and then said it out loud, and it made me think about it. And I said, "Holy shit, he's right," because he painted it like this: Dana White created the UFC. Well, he didn't create the UFC. He created what the UFC is now, right? The modern version of it. And he says, the UFC, let's say a UFC event generates $50 million, right? $50 million, one event. And the main eventer gets $1 million. That's because the UFC does not adhere, because it being a league, a self-contained league, doesn't adhere to the Muhammad Ali Act, which allows the fighters to be protected for the revenue that is generated from the events, and also they can call audits and things of that nature. And I was like, oh, that's right. So if Turki Al-Sheikh and Dana White make this league, how will those salaries work? That's what they'll be on. They'll be on contracted salaries. And it'll be negotiated ahead of time. So it'll be like, hey, you're gonna get $500,000 first fight, $200,000, or whatever, $600,000 next fight, and $1 million for a championship fight. And that pay-per-view, if they get rid of the Muhammad Ali Act for boxers, doesn't matter what they generate over the events, they get what they get as a flat rate, point blank. Period. There's no more back end. That's it. It's over, right? And I don't know if we have fighters that are willing to go ahead and forego that kind of bag, right? Because that's where their money is. The money is in the back end, right? That's where we are. And it just made me think about it. Like, yeah, like, okay, so pretending now, Carmel Mountain, right, is in the league. This is as an example. And he becomes the star that we all think he's going to be. You're going to offer Carmel Mountain like $1 million flat rate, while the revenue, the revenue from the event generates 40, 50, 60 million dollars. Okay, like the fighters, fighters like Carmel will say, okay, give me 1.5 million and then 10% on the back end, and they can get about 2.8 depending on how much they sell, right? It could go up to whatever, right? It's that's where they make the rest of their money. The UFC doesn't even allow for promotions like sponsors, right? So like once the UFC got into Reebok, you couldn't wear anything else but Reebok. That's it. Like, you can't have a sponsor against it, right? So like, let's say if Adidas, you're in the UFC and Adidas approached you about a promotional deal, you can't, even on your own time, because you're part of UFC, you're contracted with UFC, and they have Reebok as their sponsor. And if you were Adidas outside and were repping Adidas in commercials, it's a conflict of interest because you're signed to a promotional company or a league that is in bed with Reebok. So there's no outside revenue for you other than autographs and appearances, right? And even that, I think there might be some stipulation. So again, TKO having their own league with Turki Al-Sheikh WWE, how would they manage that, right? You see fighters sometimes on their trunks, they have like different patches. Those are their sponsors, kind of like NASCAR, right? Remember back in the day, they used to put like painted tattoos on their bodies, where like, casino this and casino that or this that. Promotional space. It's allowed in boxing because boxers, especially the non-mega stars, they don't make that much money per fight. Lamont Roach, I think, cleared $700,000, right? And then maybe whatever little back end he might have gotten, but that was his purse. He didn't even reach $1 million, right? Lamont Roach has to now get promotions, sponsors, things like that to make ends meet, to make the big money. When you take the Muhammad Ali Act out of it, these guys ain't making nothing. So if you're making $100,000 a fight as a contender, and you got potential, basically what they're saying is you're not. That's it. You're locked in. You're not coming out of that. So that made me think, wow, okay, how are they gonna navigate that? Because I don't want these guys to get screwed. You know, I see how. I mean, I've seen UFC guys lose ears and toes and get their skulls bashed in, and you know, for $100,000, that's nuts. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you look at Ngannou, you look at McGregor, they had to come out. Nate Diaz, all of these MMA fighters, once their contract was up with UFC, or they had to negotiate with the UFC to get out of it, because they needed to get paid. They're like, man, I one night in boxing is like 10 years that I've been in here. You know, so I can make that in one night. So they were coming over. You know, Logan Paul was like, yeah, come over, bro. Like, come over. So there's a lot more money in boxing, and then with a league and the Muhammad Ali Act being kind of eradicated, that'll remove a lot of the safety prohibitions for guys that need to make money outside the ring with like sponsors and things like that. So that is the part that, you know, like I said, I've been hearing about it. I'm hearing people talk about it, but it never really like dug into the back of my mind like as something that that worried me until Paulie kind of put it out front street and explained it really better than anybody else has. And I said, oh yeah, that's gonna be a problem. So it'd be interesting to see how they talk about that. But let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about the Muhammad Ali Act and how it should be integrated, if at all it's gonna be integrated into this league, and how will these guys get paid? Like, that's a big deal. So let me know in the comments, you know, and you know, that's interesting. So you know, I just need to see how that's gonna play out. Yeah, so let's get into this Blue Blood Sports TV source, right? Saying that he has a source pretty good on Tank Davis less than $200,000 pay-per-view buys, right? US. That's not shocking. I haven't seen it at this point. I haven't seen it like confirmed. But if you look at his numbers now, Dan Rafael, like, he likes to report out on this, and he'll tell you. Oh, here it went out. Hold on 1 second, guys. Oh yeah, don't go out. He was saying that he reports on the numbers for Tank Davis, but he also doesn't report out the exact numbers. He'll say like 200 through 215K, 285 to 300K. Those seem to be 200,000 pay-per-view buys seem to be Tank Davis numbers on his own. The only time he ever did $1 million was with Ryan Garcia, right? And that's the only time that the PBC has ever come public and told us real numbers. Anytime before and after that, they never really told us how many pay-per-view buys he's gotten. And that's a way to safeguard their star, right? Because you say my star has this kind of star power, X amount of star power. If numbers start getting up, people might change their perception, because perception is king, right? It's not what you really are about; it's what people perceive you to be. Like Evan Haney. Lamont Roach was not a known name, and listen, all respect to him now, but when you have a last name like Roach, I mean, it's it's right, and people don't know you already, and your last name is Roach, and you're coming up and wait. Oh, it's not a good look, right? So you add the marketability of or lack thereof of Lamont Roach, and say to Tank Davis, you got to bring all these people in yourself. It reminded me of Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. They did about 650,000 to 700,000 pay-per-view buys. That's a great number, by the way. But if you look at Errol Spence's numbers, Errol Spence on his own, facts were 350, 375, right? If not, I think he broke at 400. I think that's his peak, and it was an increase. Whereas Terrence Crawford didn't bring anything close to that. But for that fight, all of the Terrence Crawford's fans. So if Terrence did like, let's say 75,000, his best pay-per-view, let's say he brought in another 150 that night, and Arrow fans came out strong force and brought out 400,000, then you add them up. Yeah, that makes sense, 700,000. So it makes sense for Lamont Roach and Tank Davis to be 200,000 or less than, because Lamont Roach brought no pay-per-view star power to that matchup. He wasn't good on the mic. I mean, he was okay, but he wasn't good on the mic. Nobody knew him, right? He had no forward public momentum. So if at that point you got Tank Davis on his own, bringing up a guy, bringing up 150,000, 175, 180, 190,000 pay-per-view buys, and let's say Lamont Roach bought another 5, 10. I mean, that's about it. I mean, so while people are like, oh, Blue might be hating, I don't know if his source is real or not, but if we're gonna, let's say, pretend for tonight that it's real, it's not an out of the world number, because by Dan Raphael's own reporting with his estimates, he's never crossed 300,000. I don't think he's crossed. I don't think he's crossed into that realm, and maybe once. But I doubt it. And like I said, it's always been estimated between like 215, 250, 225, 280. It's never been like the PBC puts out numbers for us to kind of scrutinize a little bit of the star power that Tank Davis might actually have. And that's not my business anyway, right? It's just interesting, right? It's interesting content. It's interesting to talk about. For me, it doesn't matter, right? Because I don't care about their purses, right? As far as, like, don't make the fight because this guy ain't getting paid. Don't make the fight. I don't care. Whatever you negotiate is your business. I could care less. I'm not going to say here. If anything, I'm going to tell you, don't fight this guy because you don't have the experience. Or don't fight this guy because I think, you broke your leg the last time. Or don't fight this guy because he's, he is absurdly bigger than you. I'm not going to tell you don't fight this guy because you're not getting paid enough. Whatever you think you negotiate, you only work for what you negotiate. So if you negotiate a small amount, I don't give a shit. That's up to you. That I could care less, right? So I just want to see the matchups and the fights. And if you negotiate a terrible deal for yourself, you negotiated a terrible deal for yourself. That's your problem, not mine. I got to see the fight, and thank you. So, 200, less than 200, it just sounds right. And like I said, you could Google this. Dan Raphael has reported this plenty of times. And like I said, the only time you ever got a solid number reported out was when he fought Ryan Garcia, because they celebrated that 1.2 million. Why wouldn't you, right? I mean, you should. But they don't celebrate any other pay-per-view because they don't want you to know, they want you to keep thinking that he is that big star. And listen, 200,000 on your own with nobodies. I'm going to say nobody. I don't want to respect fighters like that, but nobody that we don't want to see. That's respectable. That's you're carrying you're bringing 200,000 people at $90 a pop That's a lot of fucking money. And he sells out locally, right? So the city wherever he's in, those local people from the city that he fights in, they show up. I don't think it's ever a not sellout. So at the end of the day, whether that source turns out to be right or close to it, I don't think it's a number that we should be like, oh man, Blue's hating, bro. Like that's too low. It's not. It's literally right at it's right at where it should be for Tank Davis. And I just found it interesting that people are trying to run with the narrative that he's hating, that's too low and this that he's a Tank hater. Whether you think that, believe that or not, doesn't matter. The fact is that the reporting is not off base. Is not off base. It's actually right on base. It's right on brand. And when he has no other big name to dance with. Now, if you put a Devin Haney on there, you put another Ryan Garcia on there, you put a Teofimo Lopez on there. If they don't get to 1 million, they're gonna come damn close. Because it's about the matchups. It's about the fights we want to see. It's about seeing a $200,000 pay-per-view star versus another one, and then those fans double, you get 100,000 buys. It's just simple mathematics. Floyd Mayweather versus Andre Berto. Berto was a known name coming on the decline though, and that did 800,000 because Andre Berto really didn't. He just had enough, right? But he was on a decline, so it makes sense. The numbers make sense. So I think this made sense. But let me know in the comments down below what do you think. It's a Monday, not everybody's out here tonight. But let me know if I'm planning to maybe do these Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Let me know, and I'm gonna try to call some fights whenever I can. Let me know if this is a Monday's good. I'm probably put out a poll out and see what you guys think about what days I should be streaming, just so I can nail it down. So I'm being most efficient that I can. For some reason, YouTube is shadow banning my videos. They're not doing any impressions, no matter how I title the title and put it in the body and do a good thumbnail. YouTube is just not pushing out my content lately. It's just weird because they used to push it all the time before I got monetized. But anyway, let me know comments down below what you think about what Blue reported out and all the topics I had here today. We're gonna get better at this, so thank you for everybody who's gonna join this stream post, share it, and I'll see you Wednesday, and I'm out. Peace.